what's going on, everyone? This is Nathan from Gotcha SEO and Gotcha SEO Academy. And today I have one of our members of Gotcha SEO Academy, Brett Helling, on. And I'm super excited to dive into his background and also to talk about his experience that he's had so far inside Gotcha SEO Academy and the new 3.0 that we've developed, which is, as he's probably going to talk about, is radically different than the previous version. So thank you so much for coming on, Brett.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Cool. Yeah. So why don't you just give us a little background of, what you're working on now, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Sure. Right now, over the past couple of years, I've spent quite a bit of time kind of collecting these websites, and I'm working on building out a portfolio of websites that make passive income. Most of them are focused in kind of the employment space, like helping people get jobs, things like that, work opportunities. And they largely make money with ads and kind of ad networks like Ezoic, AdSense, things like that. So I've spent the past few years just kind of buying up all these properties. And now I'm really in the process of scaling up and kind of growing those.
Right. So what's your background? And when did you get started?
So right out of college, I was an Uber driver, and I live in Omaha, Nebraska. Uber had just come to Omaha. It was a few years after they were really perfecting their business model in San Francisco, New York, all those big cities. And so they rolled out to us, and I signed up because I thought it was interesting. In the process, though, the only training that they really offered was two couple-minute long videos. And so I started a little blog, which is now ridester.com, which is still one of my biggest sites. And it was just a blog to help kind of give other Uber drivers the training and tips and tricks on how to actually do rideshare successfully. And in the process of building that site out, it really just started taking off. And I meant to start it just as like a little side hustle passion project. And it ended up getting a couple million people to it a month and at its peak. And it really that was kind of where I learned the power of online marketing.
Nice.
And kind of SEO. So for a couple of years after that, I started really just kind of learning everything I could. And now I'm to the point where I think I know enough to run a portfolio.
Right. Okay. So what would you describe as like the number one thing that got you in to join Gotcha SEO Academy 3.0?
I'm feeling like I'm trying to do everything, and I need to live in the strategy role and delegate to a team. And that's where, everything you've set up is just, it takes the heavy lifting off me having to go and try to figure out how to do that myself. So that's been kind of a game changer as I really build out what I'm referring to as like an internal agency, but it's the same agency model just for myself.
Right. Yeah, that's smart. That's a good way to approach it too. And even a good way to think about it. What in the training so far, and I know you've really gone through a lot of it so far. So what has kind of helped you in as far as the training has gone?
If I were to look at everything at a spectrum of kind of learning, it helps me see everything from a very micro granular level to the 30,000 foot overview. And the biggest takeaway of the training for me has been the process street, SOPs. Those are fantastic. So that just saves me a ton of time. It helps me to get into a framework mindset of how do I structure things so it's repeatable, it's scalable, and so I can elevate myself and then delegate the time consuming work to a team.
Yeah. So prior to that point, did you have any processes in place, or were they kind of loose? Did you have systems?
They were very loose, but they were very much in my head. So I'd have to get on a conference call with a contractor and really kind of verbally talk them through everything. And I was actually in the process of trying to create basically what you put together, but then you came along. It was like, wow, this is saving me tons of time.
Yeah. So most of the sites you're working on, are they informational in nature?
Most of them are informational.
Okay.
I have a few that are like e-com that sell ebooks and resume templates, things like that. But most of them are they're strictly informational.
Right. So what are your, short-term and long-term goals with this portfolio that you're building?
So my short-term goal is we're going through spending the next 12 months, kind of going through an intensive redesign. So I'm building a core framework and then reskinning all the sites based on that. So we'll have essentially a tech stack that we just know works well. It's optimized, it converts, the templates, wireframes, layouts. Then from there, we'll go and look at each site look at the site and then reskin it and design it based on kind of our goals and objectives. So short-term goal in the next 12 months is really get all of the websites technically kind of up to snuff, and then they look nice. Their user experience is great. From there, I'm really just going to start hammering on links and content.
Nice, nice. So long term, like, do you have certain like income targets that you want to hit, like long term?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Okay.
then the goal is I'll either cash flow it for a few years and then sell it off, or once I hit those income targets, sell it off and then figure out kind of what's next.
Right. So
But I'm
you're
building a portfolio to sell.
okay. So that is your long term goal, is to build up the revenue and profit of these sites and then flip them. Is that kind of the end goal?
Essentially, and my end goal is to sell the whole portfolio to an institutional investor.
Mm.
So that's where it's the processes and the workflows and SOPs and all that. That's critical, because then I have a turnkey asset. And without all
Right.
those things, it's just in my head, and that's very hard to sell.
Right. Yeah. That is a very, very good point. Yeah. That's people don't realize that when they're trying to sell a site, they think just because they have traffic or they're making revenue that makes it a sellable asset. But believe it or not, actually the underlying systems of how that website or business operates is really where the real value is. And I learned that a long time ago when I read Built to Sell and the E-Myth. Those two books
Oh, great books.
they changed my whole like view on that. And I realized like I don't have a valuable business if it's all in my head. Like there's no value here. So
Yeah.
I need to have, really the value is in the systems, and the value is in the ability to have anyone go through your process and get the same outcome. So like, for example, if my business was relying on me to get the outcome every time, I'd have no ability to scale, no ability to grow, because I'm the bottleneck. So one thing, and I hope you've been noticing this in the training, is I've purposely designed it so that you can have someone who's not super skilled go through and do it. That was like my long-term goal of the training, because if you have to hire someone for $100,000, the barrier to entry is going to be so difficult to even do SEO. So I did it in a way so that we could have a VA go through and do a lot of that heavy lifting, that data entry, that exporting. Like, people don't realize how long that stuff takes. Like, even just exporting data from Ahrefs and then putting it into a Google sheet, like we're talking like 15 to 30 minutes, sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you're working on, like yourself, working on multiple sites, that time really starts to swell, and then you're not spending time on the things that you should be. So do you feel like you've kind of been able to relieve some of that pressure now?
I'm still going through the program and setting everything up and trying to, I've done all that. And now I'm at the point where I'm trying to bring in freelancers to do that work,
Right.
But I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Good.
So I know that's a critical component to kind of that pressure release. Now I just need to step out of it, bring somebody in, and then everything is there though.
Right. That's good. That's good. Yeah. And sometimes, it's, even when you have a system, it can still feel kind of intimidating to bring someone on to go through it, because you're like, oh man, like I hope they do a good job. But the good thing is, like, I've realized that people are a lot smarter than we think. Like, that's one thing. Like, when you run a business, you think like you're the only guy who can handle XYZ. And we start to develop this like idea that no one else can do anything. And when I kind of like let that go, and I was like, I just need to give people a chance, right? Just let them do what they need to do. Give them a framework to be successful, set them up for success, and then let them do it, and then just iterate. It's so much easier. Like, even with these SOPs, I'll assign it to my VA, and every time we do that repetitive, iterative process gets better and better and better, and then eventually your VAs aren't asking any questions. Even with the system, you still have to work with people and train them and get them to do it. Nothing is perfect, right? So,
right.
So yeah, you just got to kind of take that leap of faith. And even don't wait for it to be perfect. That's the thing I'm trying to say is, like, you have the framework, find a person who you think is pretty qualified. I don't know how you're hiring, but I personally use Upwork, and I just obviously hire people with good reviews. So
yeah, same here. Yeah.
That's really the easiest thing to do. And then, my VA's worked for me, I think almost 3 years now. So,
oh, wow.
It's like, you find a good one, you want to do everything to keep them around. So,
right.
And I do my best to pay her well. Like, I'm not like one of those people that pays them like $1 an hour. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like I want to pay her well, so she sticks with me because she's good at what she does. Yep. So yeah, just something to think about. But anything about the training that you feel like you want to see, like anything specific that you've encountered?
So the outline specifically, I spend a lot of time like keyword research. Once I have a master list of topics I want to cover, it's the kind of keyword research the putting together the outlines and writer guidelines that I can just ship off to somebody like Word Agents or a writer or something like that.
Yeah.
On how to put together those outlines would be great.
Perfect. Yeah. Cause that's going to be coming up. So that's the next.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah. We have there's 3 different templates that we have. So we have one that focuses on like analyzing the SERPs for a particular keyword. So we call it our SEO content strategy brief. So really what that is, it's basically just looking at that keyword on a very like granular basis to see, what it's going to take to rank ultimately. And then there's one other sheet that's actually for competitor analysis where you go and enter all these different data points to see like, how many backlinks are you going to need? What are the authority of the backlinks that you're going to need? So it's very, very granular and data driven. And then the last piece of it is a completely separate doc that's purely just for the writer. So you fill out this completely like really, really good document for the writer. It cuts out all the stuff that's not going to be relevant to them. It's only the things that are going to be relevant to a writer. And then you can ship that right off to a writer. And I can tell you it works really well. We've tested it with many, many writers and it works super well. So.
Oh, great. Okay. So, yeah. With my 13 websites, it's just when I go to do content, sometimes I get overwhelmed and
right.
It's trying to manage it all. It's not writing it. That's the issue. It's just putting together the actual, what I want the post to look like.
Yeah.
Other than that, everything is, normally I don't give this answer, but everything is just, it's really well thought through from like systemization, automation. You've even done a great job of breaking things up into kind of like snippets. Like the modules are short, but they're long enough to comprehensively cover a specific topic.
Right.
So especially as I start outsourcing this to VAs, they're not going to get overwhelmed seeing they have 100 things to do. It's just, let's just tackle one thing at a time. They learn that we can do it again. And I think that's the power of the whole system is you're thinking through the whole thing and offering it from somebody who's run an agency. So you're not just guessing, like, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to your work and how you've been so successful. So
that's very, very kind of you to say. So yeah, I mean, it's funny when you build out these systems, like, you have to do it that way. There's no other option because you have to get granular because then otherwise it all breaks down, right? It'd be like, the systems for when they're trying to produce a Honda, like they can't skip certain little granular things or it's going to cost someone their life. So like, that's the way we need to think about systems. It needs to be so granular. You can't skip steps. So, and it's like, even these manufacturers, sometimes they do. And then that's why they have those recalls. And then, so it happens even at that high of a level. So, but the thing I'm excited about this system is like, we're going to continually upgrade it based on how you guys are going through it, how, feedback that you give us. And I'm very, very excited for it. I think it's really going to be a game changer for people like yourself who are trying to manage a portfolio and also just people who are working on many campaigns at the same time. Certainly is super useful in that way. So,
right.
So yeah. So that's great. Well, I'm super excited for you. Let's say in a year and a half from now, 2 years, you sell out this portfolio. What's after that?
So I'm a big scuba diver. So I'm a master diver. And so master diver, that's about as high as you can get recreationally. I'd like to then be a dive master and be able to teach people, take them on trips, things like that.
Nice.
So if I sell off, I get a good windfall from that. Probably just spend a couple months just doing training, learn to fly a helicopter, small little things that I started.
Bucket list.
Yeah, bucket list stuff and just need to really hammer away at.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good goal. So,
and then as an entrepreneur, I'm never done working. So I'll probably get bored with that and jump right into something else.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say like, yeah, you'll have fun with that for a couple months and you'll be like, maybe I should get a new website.
I'll probably, and I'll be like, I've got the process.
Yeah. It's just, you can't escape it. Once you have that in you, it's just impossible. So Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I'm super excited for you, and I'm excited to help you in this process too. I think you have a good path for sure. So I'll do my best to support that.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks.